Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do some more soldering basics. What I'm going to cover in this video is I'm going to show you an affordable way to practice your soldering skills. And it's really simple. We're literally just going to be using these through-hole boards. It's either a prototype board or a perf board or a breadboard. These things go by many different names, but they're cheap, and the pads and the holes can be very similar to what we find on our flight controllers, especially in size. And so that's why I think this is a great tool in order to practice our soldering. Not to mention, they're super cheap, and once we filled all these holes with solder, we can just throw it out and move on to the next one. Let's take a look at a couple of the tools that we're going to be using before we jump into this today. Of course, the first item is our breadboard, our through-hole prototype board. Definitely need one of these to practice soldering on. I don't have any links on where to find these, but you can literally find these at any place that sells pretty much any type of electronic component. I bought these a long time ago and I don't remember where they came from, but they are available all over the internet. If this is something you're interested in and you are having a hard time finding them, hit me up and I'll help you find a supplier. Of course, I need to mention my fan. This has a charcoal filter on it, and it's going to prevent me from breathing the smoke that is going to be coming off the solder. This is a cheap tool and it's something I recommend. I want to say it was like 14 bucks and I got it from Adafruit, and this is great to help prevent all that smoke from going right in your face. And of course, it's going to be running off camera the whole entire time. Another important item is going to be your solder. You want at least a good 60-40 solder. Again, this is something I bought years ago, so I'm not going to post a link. But any quality 60-40 solder is fine. Honestly, probably your best option is going to be 63-37, but really any decent solder is going to work just fine for you. You want to make sure that it is a leaded solder and that it has a rosin core, and you should be okay. We're going to need some flux. This is a no clean pen. This really isn't my favorite, but it's what I have, so we're going to use it. I prefer more of the syringe style where you can just squirt it on there, put it where you want it. This doesn't necessarily allow you to apply as much flux as I might want in certain circumstances, but it's quick and easy, and it'll clean the pad, and it'll definitely work for what we're doing today. And of course, the last item, probably our most important item, is our soldering iron itself. Don't buy a cheap soldering iron. Get something that is going to last you. I promise you, if this is something you're going to stick with in the long run, it is worth it to spend $100+ on a soldering iron. Those cheapo $15 soldering irons, they burn out left and right, and if you're doing any type of soldering with it, think about it. If you're going through like 2 or 3 of those things a year, this soldering iron, my Hakko, this is a FX888D soldering iron, and this you'll invest in and have for a lifetime. I've had this for at least 12 or 13 years. I've never had a problem with it. It works every single time I need to use it, and that's it. Like, why fight with cheap garbage when this is going to last you and it's going to work when you need it? So that's kind of all the tools we're going to use. Let's jump to the overhead camera, and I'm going to show you some technique on how to practice soldering these pads. I'm going to get a little solder off my roll and put it to the side, kind of so I can work with it like this. Next, let's get some flux on our board. Just kind of paint it all on there. It's just a marker. It's about all we can do with that. That's it for the flux. I've got my fan running. Let's do some of these pads. Make sure you always start with a clean tip. Put a little fresh solder on the underside of your iron. Apply the flat part of the iron to the pad and apply your solder. And as you can see, it does not take very much of a touch to get the heat into that pad. And I'm simply going from one to the next. You'll see how nice these solder beads look. They're all nice and rounded. This is exactly what you're after. So I'm going to do a couple more here so you guys kind of get an idea of my technique. And literally just practicing you're going to want to do every single one of these pads on these boards. And you're going to be like, there's a ton of pads on there. Isn't this going to take an awfully long time? Well, and the answer is yes, but that's why we're doing this, because this is how to practice your soldering. You know, why would you practice on an expensive flight controller or ESCs when you can practice on one of these boards that literally cost pennies? And see, look it's so possible to do really, really, really good solder connections on here. This is the thing you want to make your mistakes on. Soldering is a learned skill. It's just like welding. And the more time you spend doing it, the better you're going to get. Look at how nice I made those pads. You can do this too. You just need to practice. Buy yourself some of these boards and practice, practice, practice. And in no time, you'll be soldering like an ace as well. That's it for today. I just wanted to give you some tips on how to practice your soldering, so hopefully you can get better moving forward. But that's all I got. Check out my favorite sponsor in the world, Hot Dog FPV, at hotdogfpv.com, and buy yourself some awesome FPV related swag. Maybe you'll get yourself a Derek and his drone hoodie. Those are my personal favorites. That's it. I'm out of here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.